Hey guys, we're back to working on the Norelco DuoView projection system. What I want to pick up on in this video is taking a look at the finish on this cabinet. I took a brief attempt at dissolving it with lacquer thinner and it didn't do anything. So I'm curious to figure out what's going on with this. I think it's real veneer. Certainly the portion that's lifted up on top is, but what finish is on it? I have yet to encounter a cabinet from the 30s or 40s that had polyurethane on it. But it sure seems like that's what this is. Now, it may have been sprayed over at some later point. I think polyurethane existed when this was made, which was around 49, 50, I would guesstimate. But it wasn't widely used, I don't think. It just seems like lacquer thinner isn't doing anything. So, my one concern, one is how hard is it going to be to get this gunk off, and two, is this possibly a photo finish or something else weird that I'm not expecting to have to deal with? I'd like to find that out sooner than later. So I'm going to try some citrus strip on this, which will take care of any finish. It's a more powerful stripping agent than the usual just lacquer thinner that I use. And the other thing is to take out the little chassis that's remaining up top. Actually, I want to take everything out, the cables, the remaining switches and everything. Well, it seems my citrus strip is a bit past its expiration date, so I gave this stuff a try instead, and it does work. I did a couple test spots on the side, a little hard to see, so I'm doing a section on the top. It does come off. It is real veneer. It is real wood, but I guess this is polyurethane or varnish, whatever you want to call it. No idea if it's the original or not. The main reason I want to do a larger section on top is I want to get some idea of what does this wood actually look like. Wow, this stuff is nasty, whatever's on here. After a couple rounds of this stripper and then some stripper wash, we got to this point. Had to use a chip brush and a scraper. Got some of the thick goo off, and now I'm actually just using a scraper, and we're finally getting down to some wood, which makes me wonder, has this had several rounds of finish applied? It's my understanding this was in a bar, and I think that might have been somewhat the target audience for this device, so maybe they put a heavy-duty polyurethane varnish type finish on it so it could withstand a harsh environment, or maybe the owner of the establishment added some extra layers of finish to it. I don't know, but we're finally starting to get down to some actual wood. It also has a pretty heavy stain to it, deep red. It seemed kind of brownish at first, and it is, in terms of the finish. It's flaking off. But when you get down to the actual wood, it's a deep red stain in it. And because of all the moisture and the separation, it's a bit wavy, so for me scraping, the high points are losing more of the color than the deep points. So it's... when I get done, I hope it looks nice, but during the process, it's probably going to look a little ugly. Maybe I'll end up bleaching it at some point because I want to get this color uniform. I also don't want it to be this heavily red. I think that's going a little too far. But a brown mahogany, it's a traditional color finish from that time period. That's what I think I'm going to shoot for. So I will go back to gluing this up. I just want to get some idea of what was actually what I'm dealing with. But I don't want to strip all this off before I glue it all down, because it makes a nice buffer against the clamps and whatnot to protect the wood a little bit from all the pressure. So back to removing what's left on the inside, and then let's finally get around to clamping this sucker up. Alright, I better record some video while I'm doing this, or I will never get it back together right. I was puzzling how to get that little chassis out, because I could see there were some provisions made to drive screws into the chassis through the top, but of course there aren't any screws up top, so I thought maybe, well, they screwed it in and then put veneer over it, in which case you're kind of out of luck. But it turns out that there is a piece of wood with 2 wood screws. You take that out, and then it appears that the whole chassis slides out. As for the rest, some of the cable is held in place by some clamps with wood screws. Then we have this big long switch assembly, and I think that is the last major piece I need to get out. I've taken a couple screws out. The back end is loose, but I gotta get this big metal plate out, and it looks like there are some screws I need to get out up there. And I think this entire assembly will pull out. Oh, I gotta get a couple screws out of this as well, which is a linearity with compensation assembly, I believe, and then I can get all this out of place. Here's that little chassis that I just removed. It does have a lot of surface corrosion, but I suspect that underneath it was pretty well protected by this plywood, or maybe not. Okay, that is really, really nasty. Wow. Is that the beginnings of a wasp nest? Wow, okay. That is going to require some work. Whew. It's not just a matter of corrosion. There was something actively in here eating away at it. As you can see on that cardboard cover on that cap. Wow. Well, I will do my best. At least I have a schematic. That is nasty. I won't sugarcoat it. I was not expecting things to be quite that bad. Alrighty. Well, that's why I do this hobby, to take on these challenges. Well, I'll tell you, I'm feeling a little bummed out right now because within hours of me discovering how bad this was, I picked up a new TV. Some of you probably saw posted in my community tab that is even worse. So, 2 very, very nasty chassis to deal with. And honestly, the way this was tucked in up underneath the cabinet against this board, I thought it was going to be pristine underneath. Oh man, I guess critters came from the side and just went to town on this thing. Oh my goodness. The wasp nest, or beginnings of one, just fell off of this power resistor, so that's gone at least. Something was chewing up these wires. Did wasps do that? I don't know. Man, oh man, oh man. Remember, all the service info I have to go off of is like a 2-page schematic. There's no Sam's photo fact for this or anything. Maybe it's in Riders. I'll have to check that out. It'd be nice to have some reference parts placement diagrams or something, because I'm not really sure if I'll be able to identify all these parts. Some are so nasty. These resistors, I can't read the color bands on those. They're just brown cylinders. I suppose I could spray some brake cleaner in here or something just to see if it does anything. If I feel confident enough, if I find some better service info, I will completely tear this down, dunk the whole thing in Evapo-Rust, build it back up. Man. Number one thing I care about is a power transformer. The rest of the stuff is replaceable to varying degrees. These controls might be a little tough. Both two-section with a big old rheostat. And then, looks like a pot on the back of this one. And a switch on the back of this one, which has an open back and it's probably all nasty inside. And of course, I'm going to replace all the wiring. At least the wires going to the transformer don't look like they've been gnawed on or disintegrated. Everything else, I'll of course replace all the caps. At least we can see some of these bumblebee caps have stripes. A couple power resistors and all the discrete components I'll just toss and replace. Yeah, good times. How about the rest of it? Let's see. This I think goes to the tilt mechanism to adjust the projection system. Some surface corrosion, but it rotates at least. And we have this long switch. This is what switches between the projection and the tabletop direct view set. Light surface corrosion. At least they're ceramic switches, so they can't rust. Can clean the contacts on those. That's no biggie. Connectors look okay. Wiring's a little brittle, but it's pretty intact. If I have to, I can replace that. Oh well, I guess this one's a little chewed up, but all that stuff is okay. I tried locating more service info. No dice. It is in Riders, but it's just a reprint of the Norelco info that I already have. It looks like Sam's never published any service info on this, so I just need to do the best I can. It's really nasty. So before I dig into it, I'm doing some cleaning and starting out with rust removal, which may seem like a crazy thing to start with. However, while this is doing its thing, I can work on something else. So, and I am currently wrapping up the TV that's going with this, which is the RCA8T241. I've been using the Adaptacaps to replace the electrolytics. I've done one. I have 4 more to go. And why am I using navel jelly? Because it's readily available. I like this more, but I stopped making it a few years ago. I've got less than half of this container left, so I'm using it sparingly. So I'm using this to do as much as I can. If there's some stubborn areas or areas I don't want to get this pink goo into, I'll use that. So yeah, this is pink goo. It's phosphoric acid, as is that, but this is just acid. It's phosphoric, and it actually has hydrochloric as well. I don't know if this does. This is very liquidy, so you can't use it on vertical surfaces. However, this you can. It will slowly run down, but it's not too bad. The downside, really, for me to this stuff is it's goo. It's pink goo, like Pepto-Bismol. And if you let it sit too long, it dries out. And then you have to deal with getting it out. Generally, you can apply more of this on top of the dried out stuff, and it'll loosen it up. Or use a toothbrush and some water, or some such. It's just a little nasty to work into some of these areas. Everything's riveted, so unless I want to deal with it, well, maybe I will. Maybe I should. Drilling out the rivets, I just have to work around them. I will use an Adaptacap on this guy. Although it's a twist lock, it is mounted on the same type of base footprint as the Adaptacap, so I'll just drill out these 2 rivets and replace this cam. That's easy. Power transformer, got to cross my fingers that it's good. If it's not, I don't think it's anything too exotic. There's only 3 tubes on this chassis, power supply, and 2 tubes. So what are the tubes for? One of them, the critical one, is even a warning on the service info. Do not run this device without this tube installed. It is the one that will kill the projection CRT if the deflection signals fail. Because if the deflection signals fail, that CRT will destroy itself in seconds, probably even less. Because it's running on in excess of 20,000 volts, very bright, very small face. So when you have a concentrated beam with that kind of accelerated energy, hitting one small spot on the phosphor, it'll burn a hole through it immediately. So they sample the horizontal and vertical deflection signals, and if there's anything amiss, it kills the beam current. The other one, I think, is a video amp, and then a rectifier for the power supply. So most of this circuitry is or a good portion of it is power supply. These rheostats, I believe one of them is also it's supplying power to the focus coil on the CRT. It's electromagnetic focus. I did end up drilling out the rivets for the two caps and the filter choke, continuing to remove the corrosion. I got most of the heavy off, and then I didn't treat it yet, so I got flash rust setting back in within hours. I'll clean that off with some CLR later, and then either clear coat the surface or put some stuff on there to prevent further corrosion from coming right back. As for the underside, I have started clipping out some stuff, did some more cleaning, got most of the debris out of there. This is actually looking more like some actual electronics. Took both the controls off. One or both have been damaged. Those smaller rear sections that look kind of odd, I believe those were tacked on, so I think I have some work to do on those. Printed out the only service info that's available, which is the actual Norelco installation guide, which has a schematic and a parts list. And I started working up on the adapter caps, which will be going in like so and so. So I'm going to leave off here. I will be continuing on with breaking this down and removing the rest of the corrosion, and then tearing all this out. And I think when we pick up, I will be building this up like it was a kit, just starting from bare bones. And just I've taken a lot of reference photos, not just for parts location and identification, but also how the wiring is running. I think I'm just going to redo the entire thing from scratch. Thanks for watching.